Hello and welcome back to another episode. Thank you for joining me. If you're new, welcome. Please like, subscribe, do everything you need to do, get the notification going, whatever you need to do, do it. Do it now. So as you may or may not know, this is the afterthought to my podcast. So if you haven't heard this week's podcast, please stop this video, go to the link in the description below, listen to it, and come right back so you can join the conversation. Usually this is about anything I may have missed in the episode of my podcast, or something that came to mind afterwards, like, oh, I should have talked about that. So for this week's episode, we're going to talk about cursed cinema. Basically, I mean, what can you say? We're talking about films or TV shows that are cursed, that have some sort of curse put on them, that seem to be cursed. The reason I made that episode was recently an actress named Naya Rivera went missing. They actually discovered her body. She drowned while at a lake. And what was even more eerie and strange is about 7 years prior to her body being found, one of her co-stars, Cory Monteith, died of an overdose the same exact day, which is very creepy and gives me goosebumps. So the show Glee, the show that they were on together, had a lot of problems happen. 3 main stars passed away. Cory Monteith was the first one. He passed away 7 years ago from an overdose. Then Mark Salinger had his story was really kind of crazy. He was indicted for child pornography, which was crazy. And then a couple of days prior to getting the sentencing, he killed himself, which is super sad. And then it's unfortunate. In the same kind of realm, as I was doing my homework, 2 main crew members passed away as well. Another actress's boyfriend died. Like, there was just a lot of things going on with the show that could be considered cursed. So when she went missing, everybody started talking about it being like, the Glee has a curse. Glee is cursed. There's so much going on. So I started looking into it. I started looking into shows that are movies that are cursed. So I kind of stumbled upon this great network called the Shudder Network. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. It is a horror suspense platform, just kind of like Netflix, but you know how Netflix has all sorts of things. This Shudder specifically concentrates into horror, suspense, anything that goes bump in the night. So I did a quick 7-day trial membership that you can do, and they have this show called Cursed. I have to look it down in my notes. Cursed Films, which was a 5-part docuseries, which was really great. I went through it right away. So it's pretty interesting, and they kind of debunk a lot of the stuff. Well, I mean, they debunk and they kind of don't. They, they're in the they're in the business of scaring people, so they kind of have to keep the suspense in there. And they did The Omen, Poltergeist, Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, and The Crow. So when I did the podcast, I forgot to mention The Crow, which was really one of the bigger, I talked about Poltergeist, but I didn't talk about The Crow, which is, I said in the I can't think of the name. I said in the podcast that Poltergeist was the one that I knew the most, but actually it was The Crow. That one, I can't believe I forgot to completely talk about it in the episode, which is like, okay, what was the whole point of that? So The Crow came out in the mid-90s, starred Brandon Lee. Brandon, there was a lot of things that happened on set, just like the rest of these. It's interesting. A lot of mishandling, a lot of accidents, a lot of death, and a lot of stuff. They were all it was a 5-part series, but they were all eerily similar, if that makes any sense. Like, you went to see it and you're just like, okay, kind of the same. And I don't know if it's, because of the nature of the certain business and the time frame. A lot of the stuff that a lot of these movies and films happen late, prior back in the 60s and 70s, except for the Crow and Portuguese. Um, but maybe because of security reasons, because I mean, unions, back then it was just SAG. So I'm wondering if it was just a union thing, like people weren't paying attention, people were like cutting costs, and things would happen like accidental deaths and stuff. So, I mean, if you want to look at it that way, I mean, they're a lot stricter with laws now, especially after what happened on The Crow. If you didn't know, there was a scene where Brandon Lee was supposed to be shot and no one checked the gun, and it's all like a technical stuff, so I'm not gonna give you all the jargon, but basically it was supposed to be cleaned out and it wasn't, and there was something lodged in it, and when they went to do the shot, the debris came out of the bullet chamber, and because of such force, when it shot him, it went to his stomach or his heart. So it didn't kill him instantaneously, but he lost so much blood that he ended up dying. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I understood from the stories. I think that these things, like, because of all these little accidents, they become stricter and they develop laws. Like, even in they also talk about the Twilight Zone, which I didn't even know had like one of it. If you've ever seen the Twilight Zone movie, obviously there's a show. There's a Twilight Zone movie from the 70s or the 80s, and I believe John Landis directed that one. So there's one with a guy who's a bigot. I actually remember it. Guy who's a bigot, and he goes to he's just like a terrible guy who's at a bar, and he says such terrible things to people, and he uses a lot of derogatory terms, if you catch my drift. And so, as fate would have it, as he's leaving the bar, he ends up in different places that are very dangerous as the people he talked about. For example, I believe he had some derogatory terms to say about a Jewish person. So as he's leaving the bar, he ends up in Nazi Germany as a Jewish person, and they stick him in one of those vans that are heading towards the concentration camp. It's really creepy. But one of the stories has him in Vietnam, and he's in Vietnam, and he is one of the Vietnamese. So what happened was in this scene, he was carrying two kids across this water bank, and there was choppers all around and explosives and everything, and he's walking, and this guy's older, the gentleman, the actor who did the scene, he's a bit older. He's carrying these two kids, he's walking through this water, and because of the explosions, suddenly something hit the helicopter, and the helicopter fell and literally decapitated all of them, which is like, what the hell? Like, so there was a bunch of litigation with that, because first of all, it was shot really late at night and the kids were in the scene. So that's child labor laws right there. Sort of the set was an endangerment, but there was nobody there to check it or any kind of like protocol. And just the explosives and everything, all the stuff that was going on, it was highly illegal, highly like, yeah, let's just get this shot, and like, not paying attention. So, there's stricter mandates. I'm sure people still screw around and mess up with films and like, oh, we don't really have to do that, don't worry about it. But, that's when something really terrible happens, when people are like, don't worry about it, and that's the same thing with The Crow. My understanding is they sent the weapons expert home early, and he would have noticed that there was something lodged in the bullet. So is it, you know what I mean? Like, is it really a curse or just people being cheap and kind of breaking the law in that sense, where they could, if they would have just let that guy stay for another 2 hours and paid him the 2 hours, we would have been okay. The other kind of curse thing with The Crow, was that if you don't know, Brandon Lee was Bruce Lee's son, and apparently as soon as he died, there was this whole hoopla about how the family was cursed. How, Bruce Lee died because of a curse brought upon his family because he didn't want to make movies with a certain company. So people started saying that it must be also his son was cursed by the same thing. I don't know. I have no idea, but it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I mean, I really love that movie, The Crow. And apparently, after they filmed that first movie, you know, all the other sequels, they had like, I only knew about one other sequel, like the second one, the City of Angel one, that I had to sit through, and it's with Vincent Perez. Not the best of cinema, but I watched it. So apparently they had like 4 of these movies, and all of them had problems. Like, they were cursed. So, you know, there's that. I also think about the Wizard of Oz. If you haven't heard about the Wizard of Oz, all the stuff that went down there, but that was also kind of neglect too. Like, they had a lot of munchkins, they had a lot of little people, and they mistreated them. They mistreated them very badly, and they had terrible work conditions. Apparently, one of them killed himself. You could see it in a scene. I don't know. I mean, by now they probably took it out. Like, you know, Julie Garland was on. She was 16, I believe, and she was given drugs to stay that thin. She wasn't allowed to eat. Like, I mean, her life is sad in itself. So, if you can go check out her life is cursed. You know. There was also like this. This one always gets me. So back in the day, what they used for snow was asbestos. If you know, if you're in New York, that's what they do to insulate all the schools. So asbestos is some sort of cancer. This product that causes cancer and it's just dangerous. So they used this as snow and threw it on them, and a lot of people died from cancer. So there's that part of the curse. I really remember talking a lot in the podcast about Blair Witch, and how a lot of these stories, like, actually the story for The Omen apparently is just, everything that went with that was just like hype. So I was talking about how Blair Witch, it was, you know, the hype for that to get me to go see it. So some of the stuff is obviously hype, you know, like, somebody thought of something happened and they just ran with it. For The Omen, they said that they were blessed that a lot of, you know, a few things happened, but nothing as dangerous as other movies. And it gave them a lot of hype. And I think that's the same thing as Blair Witch. There was a lot of people didn't know, so they just kind of assumed, and they went in there blind. And then it's like, oh God, this is scary. You should go see this. This is a docu-series, and then you realize it's not. It's just a lot of improv. Yeah, go listen to the podcast if you haven't. I was really bamboozled. Yeah. But here it is. Are these films cursed, or is it just really interesting coincidence, or, you know, just damn good publicity? I say maybe a little bit of both, maybe a little of all. You know, you really don't know. I personally think it's a case by case. It's tragic what happened to Brandon Lee and that gentleman from the Twilight Zone movie. You know, I hope, my understanding now with stunts and sort of ammunition and all that other stuff, that they have stricter laws, which is good. You know, unfortunately, they had to do it because of deaths happening on set. If you are an actor, not to toot some sort of political thing, if you're an actor and you're on a set and you feel a little unsafe, really, that's when it's important to, if it's a SAG film, to flex your union kind of muscle. If it's not a SAG film, to speak up and be like, yeah, no, did you check the gun? You know, now I feel like if I ever have to deal with any of this stuff, like with stunts and stuff, I would ask all the right questions, because now I know what to ask, because, you know, you've seen already these tragic stories. So hopefully you enjoyed the podcast episode. Let me know in the description. Let me know in your comments below. Sorry. What do you think? Do you think there are films that are cursed? And did I miss any of them? I mean, I talked about in the podcast about The Exorcist, The Omen, Poltergeist, which you can't say apparently, Rosemary Baby. I talked about The Conjuring too. Is there another film that you've heard that has that's haunted or is cursed? And if you have, let me know, and let me know why, if you know what the reason is. Please like and subscribe, pass it around, and I hope to talk to you guys very, very soon. Ciao, ciao.